If you don't sign tonight, Eleanor, the board will consider it an act of defiance." The sentence cracked through the glass-walled boardroom like a gavel sharp enough to still the restless tapping of pens and the faint whistle of winter wind clawing at the windows of the 58th floor. Eleanor Vale sat motionless at the head of the table, surrounded by men whose suits whispered wealth and whose eyes gleamed with expectation. She heard their breaths clipped and impatient. She felt the cold creeping into her bones, not from the storm outside but from the weight of their demand. Damien, her cousin and CFO, leaned forward. His voice softened, but only enough to sound rehearsed. "Harbor Point redevelopment is our clean slate. One signature and everything we've been working toward for 10 years moves forward. It's time. Time." A word that tasted like ash. The tablet vibrated gently before her. A notification chimed a soft digital ding signaling the final contract was ready for her electronic signature. The sound hit her like a bell toll. Eleanor's fingers hovered over the stylus. She could hear her own pulse thudding in her ears, not fast but heavy like someone knocking from inside a locked room. When she finally pressed the stylus down, the audio confirmation signature accepted felt like the quiet click of a trigger. The room exhaled. Hands clapped, chairs scraped, papers fluttered. But Eleanor heard none of it. Her eyes had unfocused, drifting into the past, not through sight, but through sensation, the scent of burning insulation, the electric pop of failing lights, the desperate, cracking scream of a girl trapped behind a door she never opened. Her sister's voice. Her sister's last phone call. Ignored. "Congratulations, Miss Vale," Damien murmured. "You just saved the company." Saved. Another word that tasted wrong. She pushed back from the table, the leather chair whispering behind her. Without a word, she stepped into the hallway, welcomed by the chill draft that hissed along the marble floor. Her shoes clicked softly as she walked, echoing in the vast emptiness like tiny cracks in her composure. Down in the lobby, revolving doors groaned under the pressure of the blizzard. The moment she stepped outside, wind slapped against her face, carrying the faint howl of sirens far off, swallowed by snow. Her breath snagged in her chest, and for a terrifying second she felt the old sensation again, like drowning in open air. She didn't know where she was going. She only knew she had to move. Her heels slid on the icy sidewalk as she crossed the street and wandered blindly toward the small park across from the tower. By the time she reached a weathered bench, she was trembling from more than the cold. She lowered herself, exhaling shakily. The wood beneath her felt frozen stiff as stone. Snowflakes tapped against her coat, tapping like tiny knuckles asking questions she didn't want to answer. A memory drifted in with the wind, her sister laughing, the bright sound of it bouncing off summer air before dissolving into the muted roar of winter. She pressed her palms against her face, listening to her breath fogging in the cold. For once there was no board, no cameras, no need to pretend. Just the hiss of wind, the distant hum of traffic, and her guilt expanding in the quiet like a bruise. She didn't hear the footsteps approaching. Only when a gentle voice piped up, hesitant bright, did she lift her head. "Miss, are you okay?" A little girl stood there, 8, maybe 9, with a puffed winter jacket and mittens covered in glitter glue. In her hand was a crumbled paper bag. Beside her stood a man in his late 30s, tired around the eyes but steady in posture. He wore a maintenance jacket dusted with snow, and his breathing sounded like someone who'd rushed more than he wanted to admit. Lily, the man, said gently, "Give her some space, honey." But the girl held her ground eyes wide with concern that felt too pure for a world this harsh. "We brought cookies for Mrs. Donnelly," Lily explained, lifting the bag as if it were a peace offering. "But we saw you sitting alone. And Daddy says you shouldn't leave people alone when they look like that." Eleanor blinked. "Like what?" "Like they can't hear themselves breathing," the girl said softly. A strange sound escaped Eleanor, almost a laugh, almost a sob. The man stepped closer, his boots crunching in the snow. "I'm sorry. She's friendly. Too friendly sometimes." "No," Eleanor whispered, wiping under her eye. "It's fine." Lily studied her more closely as only children do, fearless, direct, and unsettlingly accurate. Then she said it, the sentence that would braid their lives together. "Ma'am, you can borrow my daddy. He makes people feel better when they're sad." Sam let out a mortified cough. "Lily, please." But Eleanor didn't laugh it off. She couldn't. Something about the innocence of it hit her like a warm hand pressed to a frozen wound. Borrow my daddy. A child offering comfort to a stranger who didn't deserve it. "What's your name?" Eleanor asked softly. "Lily Carter," the girl beamed. "And this is my dad, Sam." Eleanor nodded, letting the name settle in her mind like new footprints in fresh snow. "Thank you for checking on me." "Truly." They talked a little small, harmless things. Lily's school project, Sam's night shift, the storm. But underneath their words, Eleanor felt a tug she couldn't name, something loosening inside her chest. When they finally stood to leave, Eleanor forced a smile. "Where do you two live?" Sam answered casually, brushing snow from his jacket. "Harbor Point. Building C. Old complex near the river. We're waiting on the city's decision about the redevelopment thing." The world slowed. Harbor Point. Building C. The same name. The same project. The same signature she had carved into existence less than an hour ago. A cold she had no defense against seeped straight through her ribs. Before she could react, the wind picked up, carrying away the sound of Lily's laughter as she tugged Sam toward the crosswalk. Eleanor sat back down on the bench, breath trembling. Because for the first time tonight she wasn't drowning in guilt alone. Now she knew exactly who would pay the price for her signature. And they had kind eyes. And a child who offered cookies to strangers in the snow. Eleanor rose from the bench, heart hammering, a single thought echoing louder than the storm. What have I done to them? Eleanor didn't sleep. The storm outside had softened to a low, steady hum against her penthouse windows, but inside her chest everything still rattled like loose bolts in a failing structure. She sat at her desk, long past midnight, fingers brushing across the files spread open before her. Every page whispered something she didn't want to hear. Harbor Point Redevelopment, Phase 1. Vacate all units within 90 days. Her name appeared on every document. Her title, her authority, her fault. She inhaled, and the scent of old paper dust and stale printer ink stung her memory like smoke. She could almost hear sirens again, the ones from a decade ago, the ones that never reached her sister in time. Trying to steady her breath, she tapped the keyboard. A list of residents appeared. Apartment numbers, ages, notes. Her eyes locked onto one line, Carter Samuel and Lily Building, C. Apt 4B. The same little girl who offered her father like a borrowed umbrella against grief. Eleanor shut the laptop with a soft thud. The quiet after the sound felt thick, suffocating. She pressed a hand over her chest, trying to settle the ache, but guilt had a way of echoing long after the noise stopped. By dawn, she made up her mind. She grabbed her keys and stepped into the morning cold. The elevator chimed politely as she entered, but its warm interior couldn't steady her. As she drove, the tires hissed over slush and the world outside blurred into a mosaic of grays and blues. Even the city sounded different, less glamorous, more human, like she was hearing it for the first time. When she reached Harbor Point, the wind carried children's laughter across the courtyard, thin but bright like chimes made from tin. It startled her. She wasn't used to joy arriving so uninvited. The buildings looked tired, not visually, but in the way they creaked. The elevator groaned as she stepped inside, rattling like someone clearing their throat before confessing something long overdue. As it climbed, each floor announced itself with a reluctant ding. When the doors slid open, she immediately spotted a small figure in the lobby. Lily. The girl gasped delightedly. "Ma'am, you found us." Eleanor blinked. "I suppose I did." "Do you want cocoa?" Lily asked, as if it were the most natural question in the world. Before Eleanor could reply, the little girl grabbed her hand, her glove soft and warm, and tugged her toward the stairwell. Daddy makes the best cocoa even better when he's tired. Somewhere between floor 2 and 3, Eleanor felt something inside her shift. Not break, not heal, just move. Sam opened the apartment door with surprise in his eyes, the kind that warmed slowly. "Miss Vale. Didn't expect to, see you here." Eleanor forced a smile. "Lily invited me. I didn't want to disappoint her." The apartment was small but alive. She could hear the hum of a pot simmering in the kitchen, the rhythmic ticking of a clock mounted slightly askew on the wall, the faint scratch of a crayon dragging across paper as Lily resumed her drawing. A gentle aroma, broth onions, maybe rosemary filled the air. It wasn't lavish, it wasn't curated, but it was warm in a way her penthouse never managed to be. Sam lifted the ladle and stirred. "Soup for the neighbors downstairs. Pipes burst last night and I promised I'd bring them something warm." "You do that often?" Eleanor asked. He shrugged as if kindness required no explanation. "People look out for each other here. It's how we get through winter." Eleanor glanced around the room at the taped-up coloring pages, the mismatched mugs, the tiny tree decorated with homemade stars. The place wasn't perfect, but it was loved. Her gaze drifted toward the window. A notice was taped to the hallway bulletin board outside its corner, curling in the draft. She recognized the format instantly. Eviction timeline. Official redevelopment notice. Her signature. She felt her breath hitch. Lily tugged her sleeve. "Ma'am, look, I made you something." The girl held up a crayon drawing 3 figures on a snowy bench. One wore a fancy coat, the other a maintenance jacket. The third stood between them with round, rosy cheeks. Eleanor swallowed hard. "It's beautiful, Lily." "That's you," Lily said proudly, pointing to the figure in the coat. "Daddy said you looked sad, but I think you just looked cold." Sam's head snapped up embarrassed. "Lily." "It's all right," Eleanor whispered. "Cold." The child had said it with such innocence, not knowing how right she was. After cocoa, simple, sweet, comforting in a way she didn't know she needed, Eleanor rose to leave. "Thank you for the hospitality," she said. Sam nodded, his voice quieter now. "You're welcome here. Any time." But as she stepped into the hallway, her attention caught on the eviction notice. The Vale Urban logo, her company's crest, loomed at the top. Below it, in stark black letters, the deadline to vacate. Her own name glinted in digital print at the bottom. A sudden tremor of panic rippled through her. Her heartbeat quickened, but she kept her expression neutral, swallowing hard as she descended the stairs. Outside, an elderly resident stood beside a candle shielding the flame with a wrinkled hand. At her feet sat a framed photograph of a young woman with warm eyes and a tired smile. "Was she your daughter?" Eleanor asked softly. The woman nodded. "Emily. She lived here. She died because the building never got the repairs she begged for." Her tone wasn't angry, just worn like a page read too many times. They didn't listen. People like us don't get listened to. Eleanor couldn't speak. Her throat tightened until she felt it might close. "Shame," the woman added, staring sadly at the photograph. "Harbor Point has lost enough already." The words sliced straight through Eleanor's composure. She turned away quickly, gripping the railing as she descended the last steps. The winter air struck her face harsh and unfiltered, but it wasn't cold enough to numb what she felt. Not nearly enough. As she reached her car, the eviction notice still burned in her mind, her signature above the fate of Sam and Lily. And for the first time in years, the thought rose in her with alarming clarity. If I don't stop this, who will Eleanor return to Harbor Point 3 nights later with an excuse already rehearsed, thin, clumsy, and so unlike the woman who once negotiated billion-dollar mergers without blinking? I wanted to buy more of Lily's cookies," she told herself as she walked down the snow-dusted hallway. "For my staff." But the truth pressed beneath her ribs. She needed to see them again. Needed to understand the world she had put in danger. When she knocked, the door opened before her knuckles landed a second time. Ma'am Lily beamed. I knew you'd come back." Warmth spilled out of the apartment, simmering soup laughter drifting from a neighbor visiting the faint scrape of chair legs. It felt like stepping into a small lighthouse tucked inside a storm. Sam appeared behind his daughter, wiping his hands on a towel. "Miss Vale, this is a surprise." "Everything all right?" "All right." Eleanor's thoughts flickered. "I signed away your home." But aloud she only said I was in the area. "Thought I'd stop by." Sam nodded, letting her in. "You're just in time." Lily's forcing another victim to try her hot chocolate. "It's not forcing," Lily corrected with a grin. "It's sharing." They settled around the small kitchen table, scuffed mismatched chairs that creaked softly beneath them. The apartment hummed with life. The refrigerator's gentle whir, the radiator clicking like an old man clearing his throat, the occasional thump from upstairs neighbors. Every sound stitched the place together. "So," Sam said, pouring cocoa into a mug and sliding it toward her rough week. Eleanor hesitated. Her instinct was to lie, to coat everything in corporate gloss. But Sam's voice, the steadiness of it, the sincerity, pulled honesty from her. "Something like that," she admitted. He nodded, not pressing, not prying. Just listening. She wasn't used to that. Lily hopped down from her chair. "Daddy showed her the picture for my school project." Sam chuckled. Okay. He crossed the room to a shelf cluttered with art supplies, picture frames, and a tin box covered in faded stickers. As he opened the box, papers inside rustled old bills, medical forms, scribbled notes. "Here it is," he said, handing Lily a photo of a younger version of herself at a school fair. But as he shifted the contents, a plain envelope slid out and landed on the floor with a soft flutter. Eleanor's gaze snagged instantly. The envelope bore a logo she knew as well as her own name, Vale Urban Development. Stamped across the front, "Received." Dated, her breath caught 2 weeks before the fire that killed her sister. "And this?" she asked before she could stop herself. Sam picked it up casually. "Oh, that's one of Emily's old letters. She kept copies of everything she sent your company. Complaints, requests as warnings. Building stuff mostly." "Warnings?" Eleanor repeated, her pulse beginning to thrum. He nodded. "Yeah, she was persistent. She believed buildings talk. If you listen long enough, they tell you when something's wrong." Those words cleaved straight down Eleanor's spine. "Do you mind if I—" she asked quietly, fingers already trembling. Sam hesitated only for a beat, then handed it to her. "Sure. Just be gentle." She taped it weird. Eleanor slid the letter from its envelope, and the soft rasp of paper felt like someone dragging a match across her memory. She unfolded it carefully. Her eyes scanned the words, "Urgent safety concern," "Electrical faults," "Reports of overheating and insulation," "Residents smell smoke near the stairwell. Please send a technician. We're scared. I'm scared. Emily Carter." At the bottom, a typed reply, "Request acknowledged. Issue classified as low priority. Repairs scheduled for Q4. E. Vale," her own signature, her own cold, dismissive words. The room dimmed for a moment. She couldn't hear anything but her own pulse pounding in her ears. She could smell the faint trace of burned insulation from that long-ago night, hear the crackle of failing wires, the terrified breathing of people trapped. "Are you okay?" Sam's voice broke through the haze. Eleanor swallowed hard. "Did you ever speak to anyone at Vale Urban about this?" Sam shook his head. Emily tried. She always believed someone would listen eventually. She was hopeful like that. A bitter exhale slipped from him, quiet and unplanned. But no one ever came. Lily, oblivious, climbed onto her father's lap. "Mommy was brave," she said softly. "Daddy told me." Sam nodded, pressing a kiss to her head. "She was the bravest person I've ever known." Eleanor's throat tightened. She wasn't sure how she kept sitting upright. She folded the letter gingerly, placing it back in the envelope as though it were something sacred. "Sam, I'm so sorry. for what he asked gently. You didn't even know Emily. But she had known hundreds of Emilys. People whose complaints were filtered through departments stamped with the cold efficiency of corporate protocol. People whose safety she once weighed against budgets and deadlines. People she never truly saw. Lily bounced off her father's lap and scampered to the living room. "Daddy." "Can I show her my tree ornament?" Sam laughed. "Give her a second, Lil." Eleanor rose, smoothing her coat with unsteady hands. "I should." "Get going." Sam walked her to the door. "Thanks for coming. Lily really lights up when you're here." That warm sincerity almost broke her. But as she stepped into the hallway, a sudden metallic clang snapped her attention, a maintenance cart rolling by. The vibration shook loose a half-torn flyer pinned to the wall. It drifted toward her feet. The headline, "Harbor Point Eviction Notices Begin Next Month," stamped again with her company's logo. Her breath left her in a fragile shudder. She turned back one last time. Through the slightly open door she heard Sam laughing gently as Lily chattered. A sound so soft, so profoundly human, it felt like a crack in her chest widening. She walked down the stairs slowly, each step echoing like an accusation. Outside, the wind snapped at her coat. The cold bit hard, but she barely noticed. She slid into her car and sat motionless, hands gripping the wheel as if bracing against impact. Because this time, the impact had already come. Across the city, Damien watched Harbor Point's security footage freeze-framing Eleanor's every visit while whispering to his lawyer, "Find everything you can on Samuel Carter. If she keeps going there, we'll need leverage." The first whisper reached Lily on a Tuesday morning. She was standing by her locker humming the little tune her father always whistled while tightening bolts on the old boiler. The hallway buzzed with sneakers squeaking on linoleum-slamming lockers, the sharp chatter of fourth graders racing to recess. She was just about to close her locker when two girls nearby lowered their voices barely, but enough. "My mom said Harbor Point's getting knocked down," one girl muttered. "For real," the other whispered back. "Then where will that janitor girl go?" Lily froze. She knew the tone, careless, floating on the air like dust, but heavy enough to sting. "My dad says it's 'cause the rich people want something fancier." "Yeah, they'll put a mall or something. I heard somebody saw a billionaire lady around there, probably planning it." Lily shut her locker quietly. The click sounded too loud in her ears. She didn't understand everything, but she understood enough to feel a tightening behind her ribs. Knocked down. Rich people. Somewhere else. She swallowed hard, forcing her feet to move toward class. That same morning, Eleanor stared at the conference table in her office as lawyers droned through risk assessments and optics management. Their voices blended into a single monotonous hum, punctuated by keyboard clicks and the distant wail of construction outside. "We recommend postponing any public statements until after the first phase of demolition," her legal counsel said. "Emotional entanglement will complicate everything." Damien added, "You've been seen at Harbor Point multiple times now. Paparazzi caught a photo of you in the hallway. Not a great look for us." Eleanor lifted her eyes slowly. "There is nothing inappropriate about speaking with our residents." "Residents," Damien repeated. "For now." The room fell into an uneasy silence. Eleanor inhaled carefully the scent of coffee-cold printer ink and something else, the faint metallic tang of fear. It clung to her, though she didn't know whether it was theirs or her own. When the meeting ended, she didn't return to her office. She went straight to the elevator and pressed the button for the ground floor. Harbor Point felt closer than ever. That afternoon, a social worker visited Sam's apartment. The knock was light, professional, polite, but threaded with an authority that made Sam's shoulders tense. "Mr. Carter," the worker asked when he opened the door. Papers rustled as she retrieved a clipboard. "I'm following up regarding the redevelopment notice. Residents with dependents need to review transition protocols." Sam stepped back to let her in. "We're not moving yet. They still haven't given us the relocation package." She nodded, scribbling. "Yes, but with the recent media attention." "What media attention?" he asked sharply. She hesitated. "The article circulating about you and the CEO." Sam's jaw flexed. "That piece was garbage." "I understand," she said gently, "but in these cases we have to assess overall stability. You're working 3 jobs. Lily spends a lot of evenings alone. And if Harbor Point becomes uninhabitable or unsafe—" Something inside Sam snapped not violently but the way an overworked beam creaks before giving way. "She is safe with me," he said low. "I'm not doubting that the worker replied calmly. But if conditions deteriorate after the eviction process begins, we may need to reevaluate temporary placement options." Temporary placement. Another word for taking Lily away. Sam felt the air thicken. "We're fine," he said. "We're staying together." She offered a sympathetic smile, the kind that made it clear she didn't control the rules she enforced. "Just keep communication open with us. That's all." When she left, the apartment felt too quiet, too fragile. Lily stood in the hallway, half hidden behind the coat rack. "Daddy?" "What does temporary mean?" Sam closed his eyes briefly. "It means some grown-ups don't always understand what families need." He didn't see her clutch her drawing against her chest knuckles, whitening. An hour later, Eleanor arrived with the hesitant knock of someone who wasn't sure she should be knocking at all. Sam opened the door, visibly drained. "Ms. Vale." "I'm interrupting," she said softly. "You're not." But the words carried an exhaustion that had nothing to do with lack of sleep. Lily peeked from behind her father before stepping out fully. "Ma'am," she said in a small voice, "do you want to see my new ornament? I made it in school." Eleanor knelt. "I would love to." But Sam's voice cut in, still polite but edged. "Maybe show her later, Lil. I need to talk with Miss Vale." The girl hesitated, then nodded, retreating to her room with soft footsteps. Eleanor stood, sensing the tension humming beneath the surface. "What happened?" she asked. Sam exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "A social worker came by. Said the media attention isn't good. Said my hours are a problem. Said Lily might have to be placed somewhere else if things destabilize." Eleanor felt the words like a stone dropping into her stomach. Sam. "I didn't know." He looked at her. Really. Looked at her. "What exactly are you doing here, Eleanor?" The question held no malice. It was worse, it held confusion, vulnerability, hope he hated himself for having. "I'm trying to fix things," she whispered. Which things, he pressed. "The article, Harbor Point, My Life, or Your Guilt." The air stilled. Eleanor felt the sting instantly, but she didn't defend herself. Couldn't. Sam continued, voice cracking just slightly. "I don't need saving. I just need them to stop taking everything from us." Sam. "No," he said quietly. "You don't understand what it's like to be one signature away from losing your kid." The words landed with terrible clarity. In the doorway, unseen by them, Lily watched her breathing shallow. To her, it didn't sound like 2 adults wrestling with fear. It sounded like people drifting apart, like the beginning of loss. That evening, when Eleanor finally stepped out of the apartment building, the night air hit her with the sharpness of broken glass. A stray newspaper skittered across the sidewalk, and then a camera flash burst from behind a parked car. A photographer lowered his lens eyes, bright with recognition. "Ms. Vale, smile for me." Before she could react, he snapped another picture, her standing in the hallway of Sam's building, framed by peeling paint and flickering lights. A perfect image. A perfect weapon. She turned away quickly, heart hammering. Tomorrow, that photo would be everywhere. Far above the street, Damien received the photo in an email. He smirked as he forwarded it to a journalist. "Let's see how long she keeps her halo," he murmured. And somewhere in Harbor Point, a little girl whispered into her pillow, "Please don't let the grown-ups break everything again." The article dropped at 6:12 a.m. on a Friday. It spread through Harbor Point faster than the smell of Sam's Sunday chili, faster than rumors about the boiler breaking again. By the time Sam stepped out of the elevator for his early janitorial shift at the downtown courthouse, his phone buzzed with 7 unread messages and 1 link tangled in a storm of notifications. From penthouse to poverty. Porn. How a billionaire CEO plays savior in the slums anonymous contributor. He didn't open it at first, but he didn't need to. The whispers in the courthouse hallways told him everything. The low, amused snickers from security guards, the too loud comments from clerks trying to sound clever. Hey, Carter didn't know you were dating the ice queen of the city. Man shoots for the stars 1 billionaire at a time, so that's why he's been so tired. Busy at night, huh? Sam kept walking, silent, jaw tight. Their laughter scraped across his nerves like sandpaper. He didn't correct them, didn't owe them anything. But he felt something simmering under his ribs, not shame, not exactly. More like the slow burn of humiliation mixed with bruised dignity. By noon, the gossip had reached Lily's school. Children repeated the grown-up words they barely understood. Gold digger, paycheck boyfriend, sugar dad. They said them with the brutal carelessness only kids could manage, no malice, only mimicry. Lily didn't tell her father any of it. She walked home kicking slush with her boots, pretending she wasn't blinking back the sting in her eyes. Meanwhile, at Vale Urban's headquarters, Eleanor stood before a wall of screens as the PR team spiraled around her like anxious birds. Ms. Vale, we need a response, an immediate one. Do not engage. Damien cut in arms, crossed. She already caused enough trouble. Let this blow over. It'll disappear when you stop feeding the fire. But Eleanor had seen the article, every word of it, and she knew exactly what it was engineered to do. It began with a photo, her stepping out of Harbor Point's peeling hallway coat collar, raised hair tousled by wind. The caption read like a dagger dipped in honey. Is she saving them or shopping for a new charity case? The tone was unmistakable, sensational, calculated, cruel. Someone leaked this, Eleanor said quietly, her voice controlled but trembling underneath. Orchestrated it. PR fell silent. Damien didn't flinch. This is why the board doesn't want you down there. Eleanor turned sharply. Down where? With actual human beings, Damien didn't hide his irritation. Your attachment to that place is clouding your judgment. Harbor Point is a problem, a liability, one you need to distance yourself from. She felt something cold settle in her chest. Not fear, clarity. You sent that article, she whispered. He smiled blandly. Prove it. She walked out before she said something she couldn't swallow back. That evening she went to Harbor Point anyway. Snow fell lightly, muffling the world into a soft hush. But when she stepped inside Building C, the warmth that usually greeted her, the chatter from neighbors, the sound of Lily humming, was replaced by a strange quiet. Sam was in the stairwell tightening a loose railing. His expression was unreadable, but it wasn't harsh. It was tired, deeply, painfully tired. I saw the article, he said before she could speak. Eleanor nodded. It wasn't true. I know. She blinked, caught off guard. You do, Miss Vale? I clean the city for a living, and I've been gossiped about since I was old enough to hold a wrench. I know what truth smells like. He paused, tightening the bolt until metal groaned. This, wasn't it? Relief washed through her, surprising sharp, almost dizzying. But Sam's next words cut deeper. Lily saw it too. Eleanor's breath caught. How did she kids talk? He exhaled heavily. She asked if I liked you because you're rich. The hurt behind the joke was unmistakable. She stepped closer, her voice low. Sam, this wasn't supposed to happen. I never wanted any of this to touch her. Everything touches her, he said. Every eviction notice, every rumor, every mistake I make. His voice cracked slightly and he swallowed. She's my whole world. And that article made it look like I'm using you. You're not, Eleanor insisted. I know I'm not. But the world doesn't. And sometimes that's enough. Silence expanded between them, pressing against both their ribs. Then Sam added softer, "Why are you really here, Eleanor?" She answered honestly. "Because something inside me broke a long time ago, and every time you and Lily open your door it feels like maybe I'm not beyond repair." Sam's expression flickered surprise, then something warmer, then fear again. Before either could say more, a door upstairs slammed. Lily stood at the top of the stairs clutching her backpack against her chest. Her eyes were red. "Are you fighting?" she whispered. Sam straightened. "No, honey. We're just talking. That's what Mommy and Daddy said before they—" She swallowed hard. Before everything got bad. The air thickened. Eleanor stepped forward. "Lily, nothing is wrong. I promise." But the girl's voice wavered. "Kids at school said we might lose our home because of you. That you're important. And we're not." Eleanor felt her heart physically ache. "Lily, that's not true. You are the most important." A sudden burst of camera flash illuminated the hallway. A paparazzi lens stared at them from the opening of the stairwell door. Ms. Vale's smile for the next headline. He crowed. Sam moved fast, shielding Lily rage tightening his frame. Eleanor froze, not from fear of the photographer, but from the brutal realization that the world would not leave this child alone. She took a step toward the man. "Delete the photo." He grinned. "Make me?" Sam's jaw tightened. "Get out." The photographer backed away, satisfied. "See you in tomorrow's news cycle." He disappeared into the snow outside, and just like that, the little world they had been building, quiet, unexpected, fragile, felt exposed. Too exposed. Later that night, as Eleanor returned to her office, she found a new email waiting. Subject: Carter.dossier.pdf from Damien. At the bottom of the message, a single line, "We can make this go away, if you cooperate." Eleanor's hands trembled, because leverage meant destruction, and she knew exactly whose life Damien intended to dismantle first. Eleanor read the dossier twice, not because she needed the information. She knew exactly what Damien had compiled, but because the quiet betrayal in every line felt like a weight she wasn't prepared to hold. Debt history, medical bills from Emily's treatments, 3 jobs, unstable income, high-risk custody profile. At the bottom, Damien's signature looked smug even in digital ink. She closed the file, heartbeat stretching into an unsteady echo in her ears. This isn't leverage, she thought. This is blackmail dressed as concern. And Sam. Sam didn't even know yet how fast the ground beneath him was shifting. In Harbor Point, the shift had already begun. By morning, bright orange eviction notices were taped to every door. Their corners flapped like warning flags each time the old building exhaled heat through its vents. Residents gathered in hallways, murmuring in tight clusters. Panic had a sound, thin, sharp, frantic, and today it filled every floor. Sam stepped out of his apartment holding a toolbox only to stiffen when he saw the notice on his door. Vacate unit within 60 days. Mandatory inspections begin immediately. For a long moment, he didn't move. Lily opened the door behind him, still rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Daddy." "What's that?" Sam forced a steady voice. "Just something I'll take care of." But as they walked toward the elevator, every conversation they passed sliced against them. "They're pushing us out. First the media frenzy, now this. I heard the CEO's been visiting. Probably scoping it out before they bulldoze us. Someone brought trouble to this building." The last one made Sam stop. "Trouble?" he asked, turning to the speaker, a tired man in a paint-stained jacket. Who, exactly, brought trouble? The neighbor shrugged with an edge of bitterness. "Ever since that billionaire lady showed up, this place made headlines. We could have stayed under the radar, but now they're coming for us." Sam clenched his jaw but said nothing. He didn't trust his temper. Lily tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, are they mad at us?" "No," he said softly. "They're scared, that's all." She nodded, but he knew she didn't believe him. Later that afternoon, the social worker returned. She spoke gently, but her pen scratched against the clipboard with clinical detachment, documenting every detail like a quiet verdict. Mr. Carter, with the building entering the eviction phase displacement, could create instability for Lily. We need to evaluate whether temporary placement might be. No, Sam said firmly. This is standard protocol. You're talking about taking my daughter away because someone else is tearing down our home. I'm not taking her, Mr. Carter. We assess safety and continuity of care. You're working multiple jobs, and if living conditions deteriorate, or if there's media exposure, this building isn't unsafe, Sam snapped. And neither am I. The worker softened. I know you're doing your best, but decisions from city housing authorities aren't always predictable. It's better to prepare. Lily stood in the hallway behind them again, small, silent, absorbing everything like a sponge made of fear. She whispered into her scarf, "Maybe they'd want Daddy if I wasn't here." No one heard her, but the thought took root. That evening, Eleanor arrived. She had practiced what she would say. She had prepared for Sam's anger, for the residents' distrust, for the sting of being pushed away again. But when she turned the corner onto the 4th floor, the hallway stopped her cold. Doors lined with eviction notices. Families packing boxes. Children clutching toys like life vests. A woman crying quietly into a dish towel. Guilt pricked her skin like sleet. When she reached Sam's door, he stepped out before she could knock. "Eleanor," he said. "Not cold, not warm, just worn. I saw the notices. Hard to miss them." "Sam," she began gently, "there may still be ways to stall the redevelopment until I can." He cut her off with a tired shake of his head. "I can't build a home on what-ifs." She swallowed. "Then let me help." With what he demanded, voice cracking with exhaustion. Money lawyers. Press statements. Because none of that stops people from losing faith, or losing their kids. Eleanor flinched. "I did something happen with Lily." Sam hesitated. Then, like a man peeling back armor he could no longer hold up, he admitted, "Social services talked about temporary placement." The words landed in her chest like a blunt instrument. "No," she whispered. "No, Sam. They can't." "They can," he said, "and they will if this chaos keeps escalating." She stepped closer. "Sam, I never meant for you or Lily to be caught in this. Intent doesn't protect anyone," he said quietly. "Impact does." Eleanor looked down, steadying her breath. She couldn't deny that. Then Sam spoke again, softer but sharper. "Why are you fighting so hard for us, Eleanor? And please don't say it's just the project." Her throat tightened. She didn't answer. The silence between them shifted, no longer just heavy but fragile. Behind them, Lily peeked from her room, eyes flickering between them. She didn't understand adults, but she understood tension. She understood fear. And she understood when two people cared enough about each other that it hurt. She wrapped her arms around herself. If I wasn't here, she thought they wouldn't fight. Daddy wouldn't be scared. Ma'am wouldn't get in trouble. Her small heart twisted. Maybe being here is the problem. Sam finally rubbed his face, exhausted. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't be taking all this out on you." "No," Eleanor said softly. "You should. I deserve it." He looked up, startled by the rawness in her voice. Before either could speak again, someone slammed a door down the hall. A man muttered, "All this started when that CEO walked in here." Eleanor flinched and Sam's expression tightened. "I should go," she murmured. Sam didn't stop her. As she walked down the hallway, she heard Lily's voice behind the door, quiet, trembling. "Daddy. Would everything be easier without me?" Sam froze. Lily, no, never, but Eleanor didn't hear his answer. The question alone was enough to hollow her out. That night, Lily sat by the small Christmas tree, staring at the drawing she had made, 3 figures on a snowy bench. She touched the crayon version of herself. "If I was gone," she whispered, barely audible, "Daddy wouldn't lose our home, and Ma'am wouldn't get in trouble." It was a child's logic, simple, devastating. And once the thought arrived, it refused to leave. Lily folded the drawing, tucked it under the tree, and wiped her tears with her sleeve. In the silence of her room, an idea began to form. A dangerous one. A heartbreaking one. A plan to disappear. The argument didn't start as an argument. It began quietly, like a hairline crack beneath fresh paint, when Eleanor knocked on Sam's door. The next evening, eyes shadowed from sleeplessness and guilt. He opened slowly. "Eleanor." "Sam," she breathed, "please. We need to talk." He stepped aside, letting her in. The apartment felt unusually still, as if even the radiator sensed the shift in weather between them. Lily was coloring at the kitchen table, humming faintly. She looked up, offered a small smile, then lowered her head again too quickly. That tiny movement punched straight through Eleanor. "Did something happen at school today?" she asked gently. Lily shrugged. "Just kids being kids," but her voice was too thin, too stretched. Sam noticed it too. His jaw tightened. He turned back to Eleanor. "Why are you here?" Her breath caught. "To tell you the truth." Sam stiffened. "About what everything she said. Harbor Point. The redevelopment. My role in it. I'm not who you think I am." But just as she tried to continue, her phone buzzed 3 sharp vibrations that cut through the room like electrical static. Damien's name flashed across her screen. Another buzz. And another. The sound broke her concentration like shattering glass. Sam's eyes narrowed. "You're still answering calls from the people tearing this place apart. I'm trying to stop them," Eleanor snapped. "But I can't if I don't know what they're doing." He shook his head. "You can't stand on both sides, Eleanor. Not forever. Not when lives are on the line." "I know that," she whispered. "Then why does every decision you make look like you're choosing them over us?" The words hung between them, raw, trembling. "I'm not choosing them," she said. "I'm choosing what gives us the best chance of delaying the demolition. If I push too hard now, they will destroy me." He didn't soften. "So you're protecting yourself?" "No," she insisted. "I'm protecting you. If I tell the board what I know about the corruption, about the fund mismanagement, Damien will go straight for you. He's already preparing to use your personal life." Lily's life. As leverage. Sam's face changed. Not anger, fear. That was worse. So what he asked. "You think I can't handle being targeted? You think I haven't survived worse?" "I think," Eleanor said quietly. "You shouldn't have to survive any of this." Silence. Heavy. Pressing. Then Sam exhaled, voice shaking. "I don't want to be your cause, Eleanor. I don't want Lily to be your guilt project." Eleanor flinched. "That's not what I—" "She's not a symbol," he said sharply. "She's a child. She deserves stability. She deserves safety. And I can't give her that if everything around us keeps getting pulled into your world." Her throat tightened. "Sam, I care about her. And about you. That's the problem," he whispered. "You keep caring with your heart but making decisions with your company. And every time those two collide, Lily and I get crushed in the middle." The truth of it landed hard. Her breath stuttered. He wasn't yelling. He didn't need to. Quiet honesty often cut sharper than rage. Behind them, a chair shifted softly, Lily listening. They didn't notice. Night fell quickly over Harbor Point. A bitter wind rattled the windows and the faint hum of traffic echoed through the pipes like distant thunder. Lily sat alone at the kitchen table long after the argument faded into uneasy silence. She rested her chin on her knees, staring at her drawing 3 figures holding hands in the snow. But now, the picture felt like a lie. The grown-ups weren't holding hands. They were pulling apart. And she knew deep down that she was the reason. If she hadn't talked to that reporter that one time, if she hadn't asked the wrong questions, if she hadn't made friends with the woman who brought trouble, maybe everything would still be normal. Her chest tightened. A thought whispered to her small and terrifying, "If I wasn't here, Daddy wouldn't lose the apartment, and Ma'am wouldn't get in trouble. Everyone fights because of me." Her eyes filled. She grabbed her crayon box, pulling out the blue one, the one she used to draw the snow. Slowly, shakily, she began to write on the back of the picture. "If I'm not here, Daddy won't lose his home. Ma'am won't get in trouble. I love you." The letters wobbled, some too big, some too small. She wiped her cheeks with her sleeve, leaving smudges of blue crayon across her skin. She folded the drawing twice, then slid it gently beneath the small paper Christmas tree she had made at school, her version of a goodbye no one asked for. She put on her coat, her mittens, her boots. She lifted her stuffed bear from the couch and pressed her nose to its soft forehead. "We're going somewhere safe," she whispered. "Just for a little while." Quiet as snowfall, she opened the apartment door and slipped into the hallway. The light flickered, buzzing faintly overhead. Lily walked down the stairs, each step softer than breath. No one saw her leave. Sam woke with a start. He didn't know why at first. Something tugged at the edge of his awareness and absence, a shift in the air, the strange stillness of a room missing its heartbeat. "Lily," he called out softly. Silence answered. He checked the bathroom. Empty. Her bedroom. Empty. The living room. Empty. Then he saw the front door ajar by an inch. His pulse kicked hard. No, no, no. He lunged for the door, heart hammering against his ribs. "Lily." His voice echoed down the stairwell, swallowed by the hum of the building. When he turned back toward the living room, something small caught the corner of his eye, a folded paper beneath the tree. His hands shook as he picked it up and read the crayon message. For a moment, he forgot to breathe. Oh, God. Lily. He grabbed his phone with trembling fingers. Not 911. Not the neighbors. Not the building manager. His thumb hovered for half a second before tapping the name he never imagined needing like this Eleanor. She answered on the second ring, breathless, caught mid-meeting. "Sam." "What's wrong?" His voice broke. "Lily's gone." On the other end of the line, Eleanor stood frozen in a boardroom full of investors, every word from Sam echoing like an alarm only she could hear. And for the second time in her life, she felt the past claw at her throat. Someone she loved was calling for help, and she would not ignore it again. "Lily's gone." Those were the only words Sam managed to push out before his voice cracked raw with panic. And though the boardroom around Eleanor hummed with the tense politeness of a high-stakes investor call, every other sound fell away like the world had muted itself so she could hear nothing but him. Her chair scraped back sharply. People turned. Screens flickered. Damien stopped mid-presentation. Eleanor, an investor, asked, "Is something wrong?" But she was already standing. Breath shallow, pulse pounding. Memory clawing its way up her sister's unanswered call, her own. Frozen hesitation, the fire that swallowed everything she loved. Not again. Not again. She pressed the phone tighter to her ear. "Sam, listen to me. How long has she been gone?" 5 minutes, maybe 10. Her coat's missing. Her boots. She left a note. Eleanor's heart clenched. "I'm on my way." Damien's voice boomed across the room. "Ms. Vale, we are in the middle of a global investor meeting. Sit down." But she looked at him as if seeing him clearly for the first time and walked out without a word. The investors erupted into murmurs. Someone questioned her stability. Another demanded an explanation. Damien cursed under his breath as the door slammed shut. The elevator felt too slow. The lobby too wide. The revolving doors spun like obstacles resisting her escape. But the moment she hit the street, she broke into a run, heels clacking against icy pavement, breath clouding in the frigid air. Snow whipped sideways, stinging her cheeks. The wind roared, but she barely felt it. All she could hear was Sam's broken whisper looping through her mind. "Lily's gone. Lily's gone." She reached her car, fumbling with the keys. The engine roared to life, tires slipping briefly before gripping the road. Her thoughts sharpened with painful clarity. Where would Lily go? Where does a child run when she thinks the world is better without her? Eleanor swallowed hard. She'd go somewhere familiar. somewhere that echoes safety, somewhere she can hear the wind. The memory clicked. Lily once said she liked the spots where the wind sounded like the ocean. There was only one place in Harbor Point like that, the construction site near the old waterfront. Eleanor floored the accelerator. Meanwhile, Sam tore through the building, calling his daughter's name until his voice dissolved into hoarseness. He checked the laundry room, the stairwell, the lobby, Mrs. Richter's apartment, the rooftop. Nothing. Each empty space felt like a blow to the ribs. Neighbors began stepping out, faces lined with worry. Sam, what's happening? Is Lily missing? Do we need to call someone? But he was already running outside into the icy wind, scanning the street like a drowning man desperate for a shoreline. He didn't know where he was going. He didn't know what to pray for. He only knew he was losing the one person he couldn't live without. His phone buzzed. Eleanor. I'm heading to the waterfront construction site, she said breathlessly. That's where the wind sounds like waves. Sam froze. How do you... I listen, she whispered. I've been listening. He didn't waste another second. I'm on my way. The storm picked up swirling snow into vicious little eddies. Street lamps flickered, struggling to cut through the thickening haze. When Eleanor reached the abandoned site, the metal fences rattled under the wind's assault. Her headlights swept across stacks of concrete blocks, coils of frozen cables, patches of ice glinting like broken mirrors. She got out, breath frosting instantly. Lily, she called, her voice cracking in the gale. Lily, sweetheart, can you hear me? The wind answered with a hollow howl. She stepped deeper into the site. Her boots scraped across half-frozen gravel. Metal beams groaned. Somewhere in the scaffolding, a loose tarp snapped like a wing. Then a sound. Not loud, not clear, but unmistakable. A small sob, and the soft shuffle of boots. Eleanor spun toward the unfinished foundation near the river wall. There, near a stack of concrete slabs, sat a small figure curled into herself, clutching a stuffed bear. Lily. Eleanor's voice shattered. Sweetheart, what are you doing out here? The girl lifted her face. Snowflakes clung to her lashes. Her cheeks were pink with cold and tears. I'm sorry, she whispered. If I'm not here, then Daddy won't lose our home, and you won't lose your job, and nobody will fight anymore. The words struck Eleanor like a physical blow. She knelt, ignoring the icy bite of the concrete. Lily, no. No, listen to me. Her voice trembled. You are not the problem. You are the reason people fight. Because you matter. Because you deserve a home. You deserve a life. People protect, not one they sacrifice. The child shook her head. But everyone is upset. That's not you, Eleanor whispered. That's the adults failing you. That's us not being brave enough sooner. Lily looked confused, hopeful, terrified all at once. Eleanor reached out slowly, hands open. Please come here. You're freezing. Lily hesitated, then crawled forward and collapsed into Eleanor's arms. Eleanor wrapped her tightly, shielding her from the cutting wind. She pressed her cheek to Lily's hair, exhaling a breath that sounded almost like a sob. I've got you. I've got you. Behind them, boots crunched fast against gravel. Sam appeared through the flurry chest, heaving eyes wild with fear. When he saw Lily in Eleanor's arms, his knees nearly buckled with relief. Daddy, Lily whispered, reaching toward him. He scooped her close and held her so tightly she squeaked. Don't you ever run away from me again. His voice broke mid-sentence, thick with love and terror. You are my whole world, do you understand? My whole world. Lily nodded against his chest, crying softly. Then she said something that turned the night even softer. Ma'am found me. Sam looked up at Eleanor. Anger, gratitude, confusion, vulnerability, all battling in his expression. Eleanor stood slowly. Her hair was dusted with snow, her breathing uneven, her eyes shimmering with fear that hadn't faded. She met his gaze. Tomorrow, she said, voice trembling but resolute. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm telling the truth. All of it. About Damien. About the company. About what happened years ago. Sam's throat tightened. Eleanor. You can hate me afterward, she whispered. But tonight, let me stand with you. Just this once. The wind died down for a moment as if listening. Sam didn't answer. Not yet. The moment was too fragile, too full. But Lily tightened her hold on both of them, her small hands gripping two trembling adults who loved her enough to break themselves open. Sirens approached in the distance, police and search units arriving late, their lights flickering across the frozen site. Eleanor exhaled, watching them draw near. Tomorrow, a war awaited. But tonight, one child had been found. And not all lost things stayed lost. The day of the board meeting dawned gray and heavy as though the sky itself braced for impact. Eleanor stood before the tall windows of her office, listening to the city breathe the distant rumble of trucks, the muted clatter of early commuters, the whistle of wind sliding between high-rises. Normally, these sounds steadied her. Today, they only reminded her how thin the barrier was between order and collapse. Her phone buzzed with 3 unread messages from Damien, then 7, then 13, each more urgent, more controlling, more insistent. She ignored them all. Downstairs, reporters swarmed the lobby like a restless tide. Their voices crackled through the glass doors, questions sharp, overlapping, hungry. Ms. Vale, did you abduct a child last night? Is Harbor Point collapsing under your leadership? Are you stepping down as CEO today? Security held them back, but their words pierced anyway. She closed her eyes and replayed the image that carried her through the night. Lily asleep on Sam's chest in the emergency vehicle, fingers curled around his coat. Safe. Alive. Wrapped in a blanket and love. I won't fail her, Eleanor promised. Not again. Not ever. Inside the boardroom, the air was glacial. Cameras from financial networks and local news lined the back wall. Investors sat rigidly in leather chairs, coats draped over arms, faces stone-carved and cold. Folders whispered open. Pens clicked. The tension tasted metallic, like something sparking right before it burns. Damien stood at the head of the table, polished and poised. When he smiled, it was with the confidence of a man who believed the war had already been won. Thank you all for coming, he began. Ms. Vale has asked to address the board regarding recent events, but before that, I'd like to clarify the company's position. He tapped a remote. Charts lit the screen behind him. Profit arcs projected growth renderings of luxury towers where Harbor Point currently stood. Our redevelopment plan is crucial to our financial stability. Detours and emotional interference, he said with a pointed glance toward Eleanor, have jeopardized our timeline. Murmurs rippled around the table. He pressed on, voice smooth as wet ice. Ms. Vale's recent behavior, including repeated visits to Harbor Point, undisclosed involvement with a resident, and the media scandal that followed, raises concerns about her judgment. Flashbulbs popped at the back of the room. Eleanor stepped forward. Enough. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. A quiet conviction carried farther than shouting ever could. Damien's jaw flexed. Eleanor, if you would wait. No, she said. You've had your turn. Now it's mine. She took a slow breath, grounding herself in the soft hum of the air vents, the faint tapping of anxious fingers on polished wood, the restless shifting of bodies anticipating something monumental. I have made mistakes, she began. Many. Some over the last few weeks. Some long before that. She picked up a folder from the table, thick worn, held together with trembling fingers. This is a letter sent to Vale Urban 10 years ago. A safety warning from a resident named Emily Carter. Sam's wife's name struck the room like a shard of ice. She reported faulty wiring, fire hazards, pleaded for help. Eleanor paused, voice wavering. Her letter reached our offices. And it reached me. Gasps floated between the chairs. I dismissed her warning, classified it as low priority. filed it away in a system designed to protect profits instead of people. Her eyes glistened not with theatrics but truth. A building burned. A woman died. Families collapsed. And I built a career on pretending my signature wasn't soaked in responsibility. Silence fell so absolute even the HVAC seemed to hush. Damien stepped forward. "Eleanor, this isn't." She raised a hand, steady, resolute. "Don't interrupt me." Then she clicked the remote. The screen behind her shifted to images of Harbor Point elderly men carrying groceries up broken elevators, kids playing soccer in cramped hallways, neighbors sharing soup in chipped bowls. She clicked again. A photo of Lily flashed, her small body curled on cold concrete near the construction site, wrapped in a safety blanket, cheeks streaked with tears. Gasps turned to outrage. "This child ran away," Eleanor said, voice breaking, because she believed she was the reason adults were suffering. Because our actions, my actions, told her home didn't matter, that her life was collateral damage. She stepped closer to the table palms pressed against its cool surface. "I refuse to let another child be sacrificed for financial forecasts. Not on my watch." An investor leaned forward. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Full termination of the Harbor Point demolition," she answered. "Immediate restoration of the complex, and the creation of a fund, the Emily and Harbor Point Fund, financed by redirecting the unaccounted expenditures Damien funneled into shell companies to inflate project costs." The room erupted. Voices collided. "Is this true? Financial misconduct?" "Damien, answer her. We need documentation." Eleanor held up a USB drive. "You'll find every fraudulent transfer, every falsified invoice, every manipulated budget line right here." Damien's mask cracked. "You think you can throw your entire family under the bus," he hissed. "You'll lose everything." "I already lost more than you know," she replied softly. "I'd rather lose a title than lose my conscience again." Someone at the far end stood, an investor in his 70s with silver hair and a trembling cane. "When I was a boy," he said, voice brittle but strong, "my family lived in a place like Harbor Point. We survived because someone chose mercy over money." He looked at Eleanor with something like pride. "I vote yes." Another hand rose, then another, then another. The board chair cleared his throat. Votes tallied, effective immediately. The Harbor Point demolition is halted. The fund is established, and Ms. Vale is removed from the position of CEO. The final line didn't sting. It felt like release. Eleanor's shoulders softened as cameras flashed wildly. A reporter shouted, "Ms. Vale, are you and Mr. Carter romantically involved?" She froze for half a second. Through the crowd outside the boardroom doors, she saw him. Sam, standing among neighbors and protesters, expression mixed, confusion, hope, disbelief. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just held Lily's hand a little tighter. Eleanor couldn't answer the reporter. Not yet. Not here. The story wasn't finished. As the crowd pressed closer, Eleanor stepped aside, heart racing not from the loss of her title but from the one question she wasn't ready to answer. Without the power of her position, would Sam still want her in his life? Spring did not arrive gently at Harbor Point. It came like a long exhale after months of holding breath, first in the sound of construction crews drilling at dawn, then in the laughter of children darting around scaffolding wrapped in bright caution tape, then in the steady rhythm of community life returning to a place that had almost vanished. And through it all, Eleanor moved quietly among them, not as a CEO, not as a figure of power, but as someone rebuilding something she once helped break. She carried folders of grant approvals tucked under one arm. She learned residents' names. She listened to what they feared, what they hoped for, what they needed to feel whole again. She had traded her corner office for a folding chair in the new temporary community center, where fresh paint still scented the air. Oddly, it felt like the first real promotion of her life. Sam watched her from the doorway one afternoon, arms crossed loosely, an expression soft and unreadable. She was kneeling beside Mrs. Ortega, guiding the elderly woman's hand as she signed a repair request form. Eleanor's voice was warm, patient, the same warmth Lily had seen from the beginning before any of them realized how deeply their stories were knotted together. Sam stepped inside. "You missed a spot of paint on your sleeve," he teased. Eleanor looked down, startled, then laughed, quiet, unguarded. "I'm averaging 2 paint accidents a day now. You might have to teach me how to hold a roller properly." "I can do that," he said, "but you'll owe me a cocoa." They shared a smile, gentle, cautious, the kind that warmed without burning. But beneath it lived uncertainty neither had dared touch. Not after everything. Not after the boardroom war and the collapse of her entire corporate life. They stayed close, yet both were afraid of stepping too close. Even Lily noticed. The ribbon-cutting ceremony for the renovated Harbor Point Community Wing was scheduled for a bright, chilly Saturday. Folding chairs filled the courtyard. A small stage had been assembled from borrowed platforms. Its surface creaked lightly in the breeze. Sam tightened the microphone stand while Eleanor arranged programs on the first row of seats. Behind them, volunteers strung up strings of small glowing bulbs that blinked like fireflies. "You ready for your big moment?" Sam asked. "It's not my moment," she said. "It belongs to the people who live here." "And to one person who didn't get the chance," he added gently. Eleanor's breath caught. "Emily?" She nodded, voice quiet. "Yes, her too." Lily raced toward them, waving a note card. "Ma'am, Daddy, look, I'm practicing my speech. Want to rehearse it with us?" Sam asked. She nodded eagerly, hopped onto the stage, and cleared her throat with theatrical seriousness. "Home," she began reading each word carefully, "is not the prettiest place, or the biggest, or the shiniest. Home is the place where people don't leave you behind, and where you don't leave them behind either." Sam swallowed hard. Eleanor blinked rapidly. Lily looked up. "Did I do good?" "You did perfect," Sam said, voice thick. Later, as the courtyard filled with residents, reporters, city officials, and volunteers, Eleanor tried to step aside, let the moment belong to them. But they pushed her gently toward the front. She felt dozens of eyes, not judging, but grateful. A microphone buzzed softly as she approached it. "Thank you," she began. "Thank you for letting me be part of this. When I first came to Harbor Point, I came with every intention of protecting myself. Today, I stand here learning how to protect others." She looked toward Lily, smiling, proud and bright, and then toward Sam, whose steady presence anchored her like a hand on her back, even from a distance. "I didn't fix this place," she continued. "The people who live here did. The parents, the children, the neighbors who refused to leave one another behind. All I did was listen something I should have learned years ago." Applause rose warm and real. But in the back of her mind lingered a decision she hadn't voiced yet, an invitation from the newly restructured board to return as CEO. A second chance at the power she once wielded recklessly. She hadn't told Sam. She hadn't told Lily. She hadn't even told herself the answer. Not yet. That evening, after the ceremony, residents gathered for music and food. Someone grilled hot dogs in the courtyard. Someone else brought a speaker playing old Motown. The air buzzed with easy laughter. Eleanor stood near the steps of Building C, cup of cocoa in her hands, breathing in the faint sweetness of cinnamon rising from it. Sam walked toward her, hands in his jacket pockets. "You were good up there," he said. "You think so? I think you said what people needed to hear." "What I needed to hear." They stood side by side watching Lily chase 3 other kids with a paper streamer. Sam exhaled softly. "I got a message today." Eleanor tensed. "From who? A friend on the city council," he said. "They offered me a job. Formal job. Maintenance supervisor for the new community facilities. Full benefits, steady hours." Her eyes brightened. "Sam, that's incredible. I thought so too." He paused. "And it's because of what you did." She shook her head. "It's because of who you already were. They just finally saw it." Her words softened him visibly. and yet uncertainty crept in again, weaving through the quiet between them. He turned toward her more fully. "So, what about you now?" "What's next?" She hesitated. "The board wants me back," she finally said, "as CEO." Sam stilled. A long, careful silence stretched between them. "Will you take it?" he asked. "I don't know," she admitted. "For the first time in my life, the question isn't what I can gain." Her voice drifted as she watched Lily laughing under the courtyard lights. "It's what I might lose." Sam followed her gaze, and though he didn't answer, didn't reach for her, didn't step closer. Something in his stillness told her he was thinking the same thing. From the second-floor balcony, Mrs. Ortega watched them quietly and whispered to a neighbor, "Those two better say something before life makes the choice for them." And somewhere across the city, an email notification pinged on Eleanor's phone. Subject: Final deadline for CEO decision. 24 hours. Her heartbeat stumbled. Tomorrow everything would converge home, love, loyalty, and the life she thought she wanted. And she could no longer stay in the in-between. Winter returned to the city in soft, unhurried brushstrokes, nothing like the violent storm that had once swallowed a little girl's footsteps and nearly ended everything. Now, snow drifted down, gently settling on rooftops, fire escapes, and the bright new windows of Harbor Point. The courtyard glowed with strings of warm lights. Children chased each other between benches. Neighbors carried casseroles into the renovated community center. And for the first time in years, the air around the old complex carried something other than dread. It carried belonging. Inside the center, Sam hammered the last screw into a hand-built wooden bench, tightening it with practiced ease. The building echoed with faint laughter and the soft chords of a holiday song from a radio placed somewhere behind him. Careful, he murmured to a young volunteer struggling with a box of decorations. "Lift with your legs, not your back." The boy grinned. "Yes, sir." Sam chuckled, "Sir." He still wasn't used to being respected, to being seen, to being someone people asked advice from, but he was learning. A soft knock tapped the doorway. "You're early," he said without turning. "I could say the same about you." Sam froze for a heartbeat, then straightened and faced her. Eleanor stood with a small tin of cookies in her hands, her breath forming small clouds in the chilly entryway. She wore a thick winter coat scarf wrapped loosely around her neck, hair tucked behind one ear. There was no boardroom intensity in her anymore, only a gentle steadiness, as if she had finally found a rhythm that didn't require fighting to keep up with. "I baked," she said, lifting the tin slightly. "They're not perfect, but Lily insisted you'd eat anything that contained chocolate." Sam laughed softly. "She's not wrong." Their eyes met, warm, unsteady, honest. 1,000 moments lived between them. Tears storms, confessions, guilt, hope, and the impossible tenderness that formed when two broken lives dared to lean toward each other. He cleared his throat. "How'd your meeting go?" "The final deadline." She smiled, a small, inward smile. "I told them no." Sam blinked. "No to being CEO again." "No to everything that pulls me away from this place," she said quietly. "From the work that feels real. From the people who feel real." She looked almost shy admitting it. "I don't want the skyline anymore, Sam," she continued. "I want ground. I want a community I can walk inside without needing a security badge. I want to build things with my hands, not my title. And," her voice trembled just slightly, "I want to stay close to the people who helped me become someone I can live with." Silence wrapped around them, warm, not awkward. He stepped closer. "Eleanor, you didn't give up something small. You gave up the life you built." Maybe she whispered, "But you and Lily showed me how to build differently." The words hung there, simple, sincere, heavy with meaning. Neither of them had fully dared to voice. Before he could respond, Lily burst through the door wearing a lopsided knitted hat and holding a ribbon-wrapped card. "Ma'am, Daddy." "You have to come to the park," she cried. It's important." They exchanged a puzzled glance, then followed her outside. The snowfall thickened slightly, crunching softly under their boots as Lily led them toward the small park across from the center. The same park bench, the same place where a grieving CEO once met a father and child who didn't belong to her world but would one day become its heart. Lily hopped onto the bench and thrust the card toward them. "Open it together." Sam and Eleanor sat, knees brushing lightly, and unfolded the little card. Inside was a crayon drawing 3 figures sitting on the very bench they occupied now. Above them, in uneven letters, Lily had written, "Not borrowed anymore." Sam's breath left him in a slow, fragile stream. Eleanor pressed her hand to her mouth, eyes shimmering. Lily beamed. "It means you don't have to borrow Daddy anymore, ma'am. And Daddy doesn't have to borrow you either. We can just be together, like a real home." Eleanor's voice broke. "Lily, that's beautiful. Is that okay?" Lily asked, suddenly nervous. "For us to be a home." Sam placed a steady hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Sweetheart, a home is exactly what we are, because of you." Lily giggled, satisfied, and sprinted off toward the holiday tree being decorated near the swings. Sam and Eleanor remained on the bench, snow landing softly on their coats, the distant hum of community filling the spaces between their breaths. She turned slightly toward him. "Sam, I don't have much practice with saying things that matter without an audience or a transaction behind them, but I want to try." He waited. Her voice softened to something almost breaking. "You and Lily changed my life. You didn't ask for anything from me. You didn't want anything from me. And still, you let me in. You let me make mistakes. You let me be forgiven." Sam swallowed, and now she continued, "I just want to stay, if you'll have me." Sam exhaled in a shaky laugh, a sound filled with disbelief and relief and something deeper. "I don't have much to offer," he said, speaking slowly, honestly. "Just these hands that fix more things than they break. And this heart." His voice dropped. "That hasn't belonged to me since the night you sat on my stairs and told me you were sorry." Eleanor's breath hitched. He took her hand warm, cold, trembling, steady, all at once. "If you want it," he whispered, "it's yours." She didn't answer with words. She didn't need to. She leaned her head gently onto his shoulder, her fingers tightening around his. Lily ran back and squeezed herself between them with a breathless laugh. "Move over. I want the warm spot, too." Sam laughed. Eleanor laughed. And the 3 of them, unexpected imperfect stitched together by pain and choice and something like grace, sat on the bench as snow drifted in soft spirals around them. A family not borrowed, a home rebuilt from truth. In the distance, a church bell chimed. The community center lights glowed. Children screamed with joy, and a quiet narrator inside every listener's heart whispered, "Home is not the place we start. Home is the place we choose to stay and heal together." End of the story. But not the end of hope. Somewhere across the city on another cold night, another single dad stood beneath falling snow, unaware that his life too was about to change. A new story waits. Sometimes healing doesn't arrive in grand gestures. Sometimes it begins with a quiet choice to stay, to listen, to forgive, or simply to believe that no life is too broken to be rebuilt. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of kindness you've witnessed, love you've received, or struggles you've overcome, I would truly love to hear from you. Have you ever seen a community come together the way Harbor Point did? Have you ever met someone who changed your life the way Sam, Eleanor, and little Lily changed one another's? Share your story in the comments below. Your voice might be the message someone else desperately needs to hear today. And before you go, let me know, where are you watching from? I read every comment, and it means the world to know how far these stories travel. If you'd like more healing-inspiring stories like this one, make sure you subscribe to the channel, tap the notification bell, and join us for the next journey, because there is always another life to touch another heart, to heal another story waiting to be told. Thank you truly for spending your time with this story. Your support keeps these moments alive. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of one another.